There are rooms you walk into and change the atmosphere without saying a word. There are people who feel uneasy in your presence, not because you've done them harm, but because your light reveals what they've kept hidden. If you've ever wondered why your presence feels too loud for some yet divine to others, stay with me. This message is for the soul that's been shrinking to fit into spaces it was born to outshine. There are souls who walk into a room and stir spirits without opening their mouths. You may be one of them. You may find yourself receiving glances heavy with suspicion, words coated in subtle dismissal, or silence that feels like thunder, and you've wondered, why do some people pull away when all you offered was presence? Why does your very being feel like too much for those who barely know your name? It is because your energy introduces truth where falsehoods have lived comfortably. You are not loud, but your presence is commanding. You don't have to argue or prove. Your essence speaks before you do. There are people who have lived in smallness for so long that your natural light blinds them. People who've built masks so well fitted they forgot they were wearing them until your spirit, strong and unshaken, called them to remember. And they resist not because you are wrong, but because you are real. When you walk in confidence, not arrogance. When your peace is rooted in pain overcome. When your joy is not performative, but earned through battle scars and broken nights. You become disruptive to anything built on shallow ground. And so people may pull back. They may respond to your presence with coldness, with distance, with envy cloaked in politeness, or criticism cloaked in concern. But what they are really doing is shielding themselves from the mirror you carry. You are not just a person, you are a vibration, you are a reminder. You are a walking truth that whispers to every dishonest part of someone's life, be still, be seen. And not all are ready to be seen. Some people are still trying to make a home out of their hiding place. They are still surviving by dimming their own light, so when they see yours, unapologetic, unhidden, it feels like a violation of everything they thought they had to sacrifice. So they create distance, not because you have done them wrong, but because your very existence proves that shrinking was never necessary. You walk as evidence that healing is possible, that joy is attainable, that peace can follow the storm. And that is terrifying for someone who has not yet given themselves permission to live beyond the pain they've normalized. You see, powerful auras don't wait for approval. They don't beg to belong. They do not water themselves down to fit in shallow spaces. And so the reaction from others is often resistance, not because your spirit is offensive, but because it is honest. And honesty will always disturb what has been pretending to be whole. You do not speak to be seen, nor move to be praised. And yet, when you enter a room, conversations slow, glances shift, and some begin to fidget without knowing why. You've noticed it, the unease, the sudden quiet, the curious distance people keep when all you've done is arrive. You have been made to wonder if you are too much or not enough, but the truth is simpler and more sacred. Your presence is a mirror, and most people have spent a lifetime avoiding their own reflection. There is something about you that stirs stillness in the chaos. You carry a kind of awareness that doesn't scream to be heard. It hums, it vibrates, it radiates from your skin and slips through your silence like wind through trees. You do not need to speak to be understood. Your energy has a voice all its own. It calls out to the truth in others, and not everyone is ready to answer. You walk in rooms not to take space, but to center it. People begin to feel their own temperature in your stillness. The ones who are hiding behind performance begin to feel exposed, not because you pointed at them, but because your authenticity gently casts light into corners they had forgotten were there. And it is in that moment of exposure, that trembling second of honesty, that people are faced with a choice: to lean in and listen to what your spirit awakens in them, or to pull away and protect the illusion they've built. When you sit quietly, the room rearranges itself. You're not trying to control it. Your soul simply commands order where there was none. You carry wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from living through fires and learning to dance in the ashes. You carry strength shaped not by defiance, but by surrender to truth. And people feel that. They feel what you've conquered without you saying a word. They feel what you've forgiven, what you've healed, what you've let go of. You become a reminder of what they too must face. It is your calm that shakes them. It is your eyes that see too much and your silence that listens too deeply. You are not here to entertain. You are not here to blend. You are not here to dilute your presence for comfort. You were shaped by spirit to carry a vibration that makes others remember their own. And so, even when your lips do not move, your presence speaks. It speaks to the part of people they forgot they buried. It speaks to the child inside them who still hopes, the pain they never voiced, the dreams they once whispered in the dark. You don't have to ask people to think deeper. Your energy invites them. You don't demand introspection. Your stillness encourages it. You don't chase connection. Your authenticity attracts it. You walk with the kind of depth that cannot be faked. And depth, real depth, makes people pause. It makes them reflect. It makes them feel, and not all are ready to feel. Not all are ready to be still. Not all are ready to meet themselves in the presence of someone who already has. You don't raise your voice. You don't boast. You don't come into spaces demanding to be noticed. And yet, heads turn, atmospheres shift, conversations stumble. It's not because you're doing too much, it's because you're not performing at all. You are rooted in who you are, and that alone can feel like an earthquake to those who've built their lives on shallow soil. You are a living contradiction to everything the inauthentic cling to for safety. They are threatened not by your words, but by your presence. Not by your power, but by your peace. You move through life with an elegance forged in pain and polished by perseverance. You have no need to impress because you've already survived what tried to destroy you. You've already made peace with the parts of yourself others still try to hide. And when people who haven't done that work meet someone who has, they feel it, not as inspiration, but as disruption. Because the inauthentic thrive on masks. They rely on performance, on surface-level charm, on noise without depth. And when you show up whole, grounded, unwilling to play along, you rattle the stage they've built. You speak without speaking. You reveal without trying. Your eyes pierce through the surface and settle on the truth, and for many, that's too much. They'd rather keep things pretty than real. They'd rather stay admired than seen. And when you enter the room, they realize their costume doesn't fit as well as they thought it did. You are intimidating because you are not swayed by approval. You don't need to be liked to feel worthy. You don't trade your values for validation. You walk away when peace is disturbed, even if it means standing alone. And that kind of strength, the quiet, steady kind, is unnerving to those who rely on external applause to feel alive. You are not aggressive. You are simply unwavering. And in a world where people bend and contort themselves to fit every space, your refusal to do so is radical. You see through things. You hear what isn't said. You feel energy before words ever form. People sense that you know, that you can't be fooled, that you see beyond the smile, beyond the act, beyond the curated version of them. And so they keep their distance, or they try to discredit you, or they label you as difficult or cold. But what they really mean is you cannot be controlled, you cannot be manipulated, you cannot be deceived by the glitter of pretense or the flash of performance. Authenticity requires courage. It demands truth, and truth is sharp. It cuts away what is false, what is performative, what is hollow. When you live in that truth, When you become that blade, those who are not ready to cut ties with their own illusions will feel your presence as a threat. Not because you've harmed them, but because your light makes their shadows visible. Not because you've exposed them, but because your very being reveals what they've spent their lives trying to cover up. You are not intimidating because you are loud or arrogant or harsh. You are intimidating because you don't need to be, because your spirit stands tall without lifting a finger, because your integrity speaks louder than any performance, because your energy confronts without force. You are not here to compete, you are here to be, and that alone is more powerful than any mask they could ever wear. You do not shout to be heard. You do not storm into rooms demanding space. You simply arrive and the air knows it. The atmosphere bends ever so slightly, not because of force, but because of presence. Your spirit walks ahead of you, calm, unbothered, anchored. And in a world addicted to noise, your stillness sounds like thunder. You carry peace not because life was gentle with you, but because you learned to find quiet in the middle of the storm, because you made stillness your sanctuary when all else screamed for your destruction. You became peace by choosing not to become what tried to break you. You did not harden, you healed. You did not retreat, you transformed. And now, people don't know what to do with you. They don't understand how you can be so soft yet unshakable, so kind yet untouchable, so present yet free from the chaos they carry. Your peace is not passive. It is the product of deep work, long nights, tears that had no audience, and prayers whispered with trembling breath. And that kind of peace, the kind that's earned, not borrowed, disrupts everything that thrives on unrest. People who feed on conflict feel unsteady around you. Those who stir gossip, manipulate silence, thrive on drama, find no foothold in your energy. They cannot rile you, cannot bait you, cannot drag you into their whirlwind because you do not serve chaos. You witness it, recognize it, and walk away. And walking away without explanation, without anger, without theatrics, that unnerves them. Your exit is too clean. Your boundaries are too clear. Your refusal to match their frequency leaves them exposed to the emptiness of their own noise. You see, your peace isn't just calm, it's authority. It says, I know who I am, I know what I will not allow, I know the value of my energy and the price of my presence. And in a world where many are performing success, performing relationships, performing healing, you are simply being. That authenticity pierces through pretense. It brings to surface what others try to hide beneath their busyness and their pride and their endless distractions. You become a mirror to the unsettled. They look at you and are forced to see where they have abandoned themselves. Your peace calls out their unrest. Your silence exposes their noise. Your joy, unbought and unprovoked, reminds them that true contentment cannot be faked, and that confrontation with themselves, not with you, is what they're really reacting to. You are not the enemy. You are the evidence that another way exists, that healing is real, that peace is possible. But peace, real peace, cannot be worn like clothing. It must be cultivated, it must be built, and building it demands the demolition of all things untrue. You are disruptive because your peace is truthful. It is not reactive. It does not chase. It does not beg. It does not prove. It simply remains. You do not need to clap back or correct or convince. You do not need to explain your soul to someone who is committed to misunderstanding it. You just breathe. You just live. And in doing so, you shift the room. You recalibrate the energy. You remind the wounded that stillness is possible and remind the restless that chaos is not home. You carry a peace that makes noise without sound, that challenges without confrontation, that speaks without words. And that kind of peace is power. That kind of peace is rare. That kind of peace cannot be bought, borrowed, or broken. It simply is. And that, more than anything, is what unsettles the storm. There is a strange and silent distance that follows a soul like yours, one that knows its value but does not demand to be seen, one that speaks truths that others aren't ready to hear. You walk through life not as a performer but as a presence, and in doing so, you often find yourself cast into the corners of misunderstanding, not because you are unclear, but because you are too clear. Not because you lack warmth, but because your fire burns inward, steady and contained. You do not fit into molds built for the predictable, and so you are frequently misread, mislabeled, misinterpreted by those who have not yet come to understand themselves. People see you and they feel something stir, a reflection perhaps of what they wish they could be if only they had the courage to break their own patterns. You carry yourself with a grace that isn't loud, a strength that doesn't need display, and a quiet that is anything but empty. And for many, that is confusing. The world teaches them to look for power in volume, presence in performance, leadership in domination. But you lead by being. You command by existing. You influence without effort. That confounds the ones who only recognize value when it screams. You are not easy to figure out. You are not someone who spills everything upon arrival, who opens every door for inspection, who hands out pieces of yourself like invitations to a show. You move like the ocean, deep, layered, mysterious. And those who seek only surface waters will never understand your tides. They will misunderstand your silence as coldness. They will interpret your stillness as pride. They will mistake your discernment for distance, but behind their confusion is something else, respect. They may not admit it aloud. They may not even know how to name it, but when you speak, they listen. When you move, they watch. When you rise, they feel it. Because even in their misunderstanding, they cannot deny the weight of your presence. They may try to explain you away, but something in them knows. They are in the presence of someone who has done the work, someone who carries pain without becoming bitter, someone who has walked through fire and emerged shaped, not shattered. You don't shout your wisdom. You don't argue to be right. You simply live in alignment with what you've learned, and that unsettles those who are still pretending. You do not water yourself down to be digestible. You do not conform to be accepted. You would rather walk alone in your truth than gather a crowd in a lie. And that conviction, that sacred devotion to authenticity, earns a respect deeper than applause. It earns silence. It earns attention. It earns the kind of reverence that doesn't need to speak your name to carry your influence. They may not invite you to every table, but they consult your echo when they are lost. They may not understand your boundaries, but they know not to cross them. They may never say you inspire them, but they will try to imitate your calm. You are not the loudest voice in the room, but you are the voice that lingers when the noise fades. You are not the most agreeable, but you are the most aligned. And in time, even those who misunderstand you will come to respect you, not because you changed for them, but because you remained unchanged by them. You walk with the knowledge of who you are. You speak with the authority of survival. You love with the wisdom of someone who knows what it costs to love deeply. And though it may isolate you, though it may confuse those who seek simplicity in others, your truth remains whole. You are not meant to be easy to explain. You are meant to be felt, to be experienced, to be remembered. Misunderstood, yes, but never mistaken for anything less than what you are. Rooted, rare, and deeply respected. You don't enter a room and blend in. You enter and shift the atmosphere without needing to try. Your energy is not aggressive, but it is undeniable. It doesn't ask permission to be felt. It announces itself in your silence, in the way your eyes see past masks, in the way your presence stirs something ancient inside people, the part of them they've ignored, the part that aches to grow, or the part that fears being exposed. You do not shake hands with the surface. You dive straight into the soul, and for some, that is too much too soon. For others, it's exactly the push they needed. You see, your very existence challenges what is stagnant in others. Without uttering a single word, you become a mirror that reflects truth, a mirror that shows people who they are when they're no longer hiding behind what they perform. And not everyone is ready for that reflection. Some will step forward, trembling, unsure, but willing to confront their own edges. They will rise, not because you told them to, but because your energy dares them to believe they could be more. You awaken the buried hunger in them to be real, to be bold, to be healed. But there are others who will run. Not because you hurt them, but because your wholeness threatens their excuses. Your light reveals where they've grown comfortable in the dark. Your strength unsettles the part of them still living in fear. You become a storm to those who've only ever known the stillness of suppression. And rather than face themselves, they retreat. They back away. They ghost you, avoid you, minimize you, not because of anything you did, but because they're not yet ready to meet the version of themselves your presence demands. And you must understand, this has nothing to do with ego. It has nothing to do with pride. It's not about being above anyone. It's about being in alignment with truth. And truth, by its nature, is disruptive. You don't entertain what is fake. You don't make space for what's shallow. You don't cling to what's lukewarm. You move with intention, with depth, with fire. And those who are not prepared to move with you, who are still clinging to their comfort zones, their lies, their stories, they will choose escape over evolution. But do not dim for those who run. Do not shrink so you're easier to swallow. Do not dilute your spirit just to be more palatable. You are not meant to make everyone stay. You are meant to spark a choice. You are the line in the sand. You are the invitation and the warning. And how they respond is their journey, not your burden. Some people will rise because of you, others will flee,